Have you been dealing with this for years? Hey everybody, and welcome to The Whole Truth, where I am taking you through the entire Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation, and we are not skipping anything. If that sounds good to you, reach down and hit the little subscribe button below. Don't forget, if you want the study notes to this video and to all the videos that I'm putting out from this point forward, they are all free over at Patreon. Patreon.com/thewholetruth. Go get the notes for free, and if you want to support the channel, I would certainly be grateful of that. But the main thing, I got to keep the main thing, and it's to get as many people as I can into God's Word. It's an exciting day for us here because we move into the next segment in David's life. As David moves from, we're moving, the movement we're seeing is from the rise of David, how David went from being a shepherd boy to being the king in Israel. Today is the inauguration of David as king. So we shift, and now it is no longer the rise of David as David is coming up, but instead now we are in the reign of David. When David reigns as king, what happens in Israel, and then how does that translate to you and I? Well, we'll see one of those that happens even today. As soon as Israel makes David the king, guess what happens? A stronghold that's been in Israel falls. A stronghold that even mocked him falls. So I ask you this question today. What's the thing that's been on you for years? The thing that you've been dealing with for years? And maybe, just maybe, the answer is, who's the king of your heart? Okay, this is 2 Samuel chapter 5. Let's do the first half. I'll do the other half of the video and then the other half of the chapter in the next video. Let's do the first half of the chapter through verse 11. For right now, read verses 1 through 5 with me. 2 Samuel chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. Then all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and spoke, saying, "Indeed, we are your bone and your flesh. Also in time past, when Saul was king over us, you were the one who led us out of Israel and brought them in. And the Lord said, who led us out and brought them in. And the Lord said to you, you shall shepherd my people Israel and be ruler over Israel. Therefore, all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and in Jerusalem, he reigned 33 years over all of Israel and Judah." This is beautiful. After David was a shepherd boy, brought into the kingdom, chased out of the kingdom, well, killed Goliath. He was chased out of the kingdom because the people loved him so much. They loved him too much, and he was winning too many battles. Saul lost his mind and saw David as a threat to the kingdom. And David is going to one day have the throne, but he didn't realize that he had in David one of the most loyal subjects of anybody. David would have never turned his back on Saul, and he proved that. Even when Saul was trying to kill him, on multiple occasions, David had an opportunity to kill Saul. But did he do it? No, he did not. Why didn't he do it? Because he said he was waiting on the Lord. And sure enough, that's exactly what he did. He waited on the Lord. Saul died, and David still waited on the Lord. And we still didn't get to this point. David asked the Lord, he said, "Lord, should I go up to them? Should I go back to them?" And even because he had been chased out of the kingdom. And the Lord said, "Yes, go back." So where did David go? David went to Hebron, and he ruled in Hebron over just one tribe, Judah, for a couple of years. Then, after Ishbosheth had turned on Abner, the general for the Israelite army, the guy who had set him up as the king. You have to go back and watch those other videos if I'm speaking too much for you there. But just understand, for the sake of this video, I'm going to keep moving us forward. When David waited for Ishbosheth to be out of the way, okay, even still, David wasn't gonna go and take over. He was waiting on the Lord. He wasn't gonna go and have a hostile takeover. But sure enough, a couple of other guys went in and they did it. They killed Ishbosheth. Now Ishbosheth is out of the way. And so what do we see? Now the men of Israel, the other 11 tribes, not Judah. Judah was already subject to David as the king. There's been a civil war for a couple of years, but really between the people, David doesn't seem to, we don't see David really orchestrating that. He's not trying to take the throne away from Ishbosheth. He is waiting for God to do what the Lord does. And so that's what the Lord's done. The Lord has positioned David in such a place that now Israel comes and subjects themselves to him. And even in that, he pictures Christ. But look at what happens. Look at what happens in Israel. They recognize that David is the king. And so what do they do when they come to David as the king? They say, well, first of all, like, you're our bone and you're our flesh. You're flesh and bone. You're a family. You're part of Israel. Will you please pay attention to this about Christ? That he is the Son of God. Yes, he is the creator of all things. Yes, he has all power. He is omniscient. He is all-knowing, that is to say. He is all-powerful. He is omnipotent. He is everything. He is everywhere all at once and has all power, no limits. This is the Christ that we serve. And it is that Christ, the Son of the living God, who came to this earth and took on flesh. He took on our bodily form, and he died for us in that state. Now, notice they said, not only are you our bone and our flesh, but they said something else. They said, you're the one who led us out of Israel and brought us back in. In other words, you're the one who was bringing us the victory. So when David was in Israel, they're referencing years in the past. They're referencing back in the day, you used to be a general. You used to be over 1,000 men in Saul's army. You used to lead the armies out and lead them back in. And we followed you for all of those years, and you were the one bringing us the victory. So even though Saul's chased him out of Israel, and he had been out for a long time, and even though they had not subjected themselves to David as the king, they recognized that all of those victories were actually coming from David. Can I remind you of this, that God makes the sun to shine on the just and the unjust. He makes the rain to fall on the just and the unjust, and every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father of lights. Everything that you have, whether you want to admit this or not, if God is real, obviously we believe that he is, if God is real, he's created all things, he's created you, he's created your life, and all the good things that are in your life have come from him. I hope that you recognize that very true statement, that Christ is your all in all. But then they recognize something else. They say this. They say, and God called you to shepherd his people. That's what they said. They said, the Lord said, you shall shepherd my people. It is Christ who is the good shepherd. And why is he the good shepherd? Check this out. Because God anointed it. God appointed it. God is the one who it pleased him to send his son here. It pleased him to bruise his son, but it not because God is some big mean God who wanted to bruise his son, but it pleased him to bruise his son because he was making a way for you and I. His son was making a way for you and I to come back to the Father. And in that way, we can say he is the good shepherd. He's the good shepherd, and we know his voice. God is the one who had anointed David and appointed David. The people had seen it all along. Now that's what they're recognizing. They're using that, recognizing that as a means to say to David, come and be our king. And I'm saying, if you'll recognize that about Christ, it is Christ who God anointed to be your Savior. He is the one who God anointed and appointed, and he came and he died for us. If you'll put your faith in him and you'll believe in him, then he'll save you and he'll be your king. Well, look at what happens next in the story. This is where I want to get to today. If you have been struggling with something, if you've been dealing with something for years, well, look at this in verse 6. And the king and his men went to Jerusalem against the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, who spoke to David, saying, you shall not come in here, but the blind and the lame will repel you. Thinking David cannot come in here. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion, that is the city of David. And David said on that day, whoever climbs up by way of the water shaft or defeats the Jebusites, the lame and the blind, who are hated by David's soul, he shall be chief and captain. Therefore they say, the blind and the lame shall not come into the house. Pay attention as the king conquers. He's just made the king in all of Israel. And what does he do? He moves over after a couple of years in Hebron. After a few years in Hebron, he moves his headquarters from Hebron and he moves them to Jerusalem. But somebody is held up in Jerusalem. Who is it? The Jebusites. Wait a second. How long have the Jebusites been in Jerusalem? Jerusalem is right there in Israel. So why are there Jebusites in Jerusalem? It has been since Joshua. You can actually find in Joshua, I should have put it here in the study notes, you can actually find in Joshua where we read that the Jebusites were not driven out. They have a walled city, the city of Jerusalem. It was this fortified city right there in Israel, and they were never able to drive all of the Jebusites, all of the people who were inhabiting the land. So if you don't remember how that story went, let me just remind you really quickly that Israel was enslaved in Egypt. Moses delivers them out of Egypt. They were going to go in the promised land. They refused. They wouldn't go. They said, why didn't the Lord kill us in the wilderness? Why didn't he kill us already? Why did he send us in there to die by the hand of these giants? And the Lord said, look, if you want to die, then go die. And so they wandered for the next 40 years in the wilderness, and 40 years later, they get to the edge of the promised land, and Moses doesn't get to go in, but a guy named Joshua takes them in. And God told them to go in and drive out all of the Canaanite people, but they didn't drive out everybody. They didn't drive everybody out of their cities. They didn't drive all the Canaanites and all the Jebusites and all the Perizzites and all the other ites. They didn't drive them all out. So ever since the days of Joshua. So then you get after Joshua, and remember what happened after Joshua. We got into Judges, and then we had Ruth. And then we had 1 Samuel. Those Jebusites have been there for years, but they shouldn't be there. God told them to drive those Jebusites out way back under Joshua. They just never fulfilled it. But now, pay attention to this. They get David as their king. And what's David do? David marches into that stronghold. He marches in. Now, they try to mock him. They said, he's not going to be able to get in here. Even the lame and the blind are going to be able to hold him out. Now, everybody pay attention to this, because we're not talking about physically lame and blind people, and then, well, David has this some hatred for lame and blind people, and they're not allowed in his kingdom. He'll actually prove differently than that with a guy named Mephibosheth here in just a few chapters, maybe even just one chapter. Well, no, it's not one, like maybe 2 chapters. We'll see just in a few chapters, we'll see the story of Mephibosheth. I can't remember off the top of my head right now where Mephibosheth is, but what I'm saying is to you, David does not have some sort of a hatred for lame people who can't walk or people who are blinded. So don't flip that around and try to make some sort of typology out of that. Listen, Jesus healed the blind, and he healed the lame, and he took care of those who were sick. That's not what's happening here. David has a hatred for what they've just said about him. David is coming against the city of Jerusalem, and instead of surrendering that city to King David, they decide their walls are going to hold him out, and they're going to hold him out so well that even blind people and lame people would be able to hold him out. And so what does David say? David makes a decree to all his people, and he says, whoever climbs up those water shafts, whoever climbs up the walls, whoever goes in, I'll make him the captain of my army. Well, guess what happens? They break through, and when they break through, they make Jerusalem. Not only do they take Jerusalem, but David ends up making Jerusalem his capital city. He makes Zion the capital city of David. Here is Jerusalem. Now Jerusalem is Zion. Jerusalem is the capital city. By the way, there is something interesting to point out there, isn't there? That one day Jesus is going to return. And where's he returning to? In Jerusalem. He will come, and it will be a battle. There is going to be a battle in the end. The battle of Armageddon one day will happen, and Christ will come, and there will be those who will try to fight against him. But notice, we don't hear much of the fight itself. We just hear that David said, I'm coming in, and that he goes in. David went in and took the thing that had been in Israel, the stronghold that had been in Israel for all of those years, and he made short work of it. It didn't take David years to drive them out. There wasn't a year-long, at least not that we read, there wasn't a year-long battle that waged against Jerusalem. Nope. He went in and he made short work of it, and he drove those Jebusites out, something that should have been done years and years and years ago. But Israel never did it. Why? Even under Saul, why didn't they do it? Because Saul wasn't a man after God's own heart, but David is a man after God's own heart. And here's what I want to tell you right now. Here's the practical application. Maybe there's some spiritual stronghold. Maybe there's some physical thing that you've been dealing with for years. Maybe there's an addiction that you've been dealing with for years. Here's what I want to tell you right now. Obedience and surrender to Christ the King. That is our answer. How do you break down strongholds? How do you break down strongholds when if there's somebody held up in your house, if there's a strong man held up in your house, how do you get him out? A stronger man has to come in. That's what Jesus said. And so that's the deal. There are strongholds in our life. How do we get them out? Well, it can't be you. You've already not been strong enough. So more discipline doesn't do it. More exercise, more training doesn't do it. More knowledge doesn't do it. You need a stronger man than yourself. and that person is Christ, and he will come and he will dwell within you. And he said that we're a peculiar people. We are a nation of priests, and he will dwell in us and we will dwell in him. He is the vine, we are the branches. And if we will be in him, then we will bear much fruit. If you need deliverance today, that deliverance is found through the person of Jesus. And then look at I said 11 verses. Let's go. We're doing 12 verses. Sorry about that. I misquoted myself there, my own notes there. But read on through verse 12 with me. So 9 through 12, and we'll finish this chapter up. Then this half of the chapter. Then David dwelt in the stronghold and called it the city of David. And David built all around from the Milo and inward. And so David went on and became great, and the Lord God of hosts was with him. Then Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to David and cedar trees and carpenters and masons, and they built David a house. And so David knew that the Lord had established him as king over Israel, and that he had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people Israel. And David took more concubines and wives from Jerusalem. I'm sorry, I started to read a little too far there. Just through verse 12. And so what do we see? Not only did David take the stronghold, but here's what happened. David actually set up the stronghold. He set up Jerusalem as his home, as the new capital city. And that's what I'm trying to express to you about Christ. That what Christ will do is reside in you. And that one thing that used to seem impossible to beat, the thing that maybe is in your life right now that you feel like, I've been dealing with this for years, and how am I ever going to be able to overcome this? I need you to hear this. Not only will Jesus come and take over, not only will he deliver you from that stronghold, but please, please, please hear this. He'll actually even turn that stronghold around, and he'll make that his capital. You know, one of the things that I love that Christ does is this. He flips around. He's like a turnaround specialist. He flips around what once was the addiction that held you down. Christ will deliver you from that, and then that will become the testimony that will lead others to him. And guess what? When you share your testimony, the thing that the Lord delivered you from, the life that the Lord brought to you out of death, as the Lord turned your life around, then what does he turn around and do? As he dwells there and gives you the strength to stay firm, to stay delivered, as he gives you that strength, then what does he do? He turns that into your testimony. You share that with others. Others are saved as a result. And then he turns around and does something. He rewards you for sharing that testimony and leading others to him and the deliverance that's found in him. Don't you see? He's the king who will take over the stronghold. All you have to do is receive him. Will you receive the king today? Will you put your trust in the king today, who's already the king? He's already anointed and appointed. It's your time to receive him as the king that he already is. See, David went into the city, and what did the Lord do? The Lord sent people there. The king of Tyre, Hiram, king of Tyre, came to David with cedar trees and workers, laborers, to come in and do something. These guys were artisan carpenters and masons, and they came in and they built a house for David. And David could see, and he went, this is God putting his fulfilling his promise and proving that he has established me as the king. David was able to recognize that the Lord had established him, that this is what the Lord wanted for him. And friends, this is what I want you to know. When you put your faith in Christ and he delivers you, and you feel that freedom for the first time, you're going to know that this is exactly what God has had for you all along. As a matter of fact, you might even say, what took me so long to get here? Well, I sure hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I hope you'll come back tomorrow or maybe even later today as we get into the second video for 1 Samuel chapter 5, or 2 Samuel chapter 5. I'll figure out what I'm saying one day. I'll see y'all next time.